Alright, so we're back here. This is the MikeLeah live sweat part 4. We missed a few hands there in between. It just takes a few minutes for the previous video to save. So I'll just replay them for you guys here. I just want to have a look at this hand here first. So went under the gun raise, call, and then a 3-bet from the big blind, who's the big stack. And this guy, who we have a few notes on already, flatted the pre-flop raise and flatted the squeeze from the big blind. Just under half pot c-bet, and wow, that's an interesting play with ace-10, to say the least. Alright, I was with 7 people to go with the money. He flatted an under the gun raise with ace-10, flatted a squeeze, and then shoved on a c-bet with no fold equity. But let's go back over the few hands here that happened while I wasn't recording. So if you remember, previous to the break, we had pocket 9s under the gun and won the hand versus that guy out of the big blind, which I kind of regret we didn't get more action now after we've seen him play a little bit more. Okay. Very next hand, we folded 10-6 suited from the big blind to raise. Next hand was kind of interesting. It was a fairly easy decision, but we had pocket 3s in the small blind. If it had folded to this guy, or maybe this guy was a bigger stack opening on the bubble, I might have shoved just over 20 big blinds on their open. But this guy opening 8 from the money into a big stack from early position, I didn't want to shove 3s on him. I felt he has a strong hand most of the time, and if he calls, we're in big trouble unless he has ace-king. And I could have just called for set value 1,000 more, which I kind of have the right odds, but there's a chance that this player might shove, and I just decided to save the 1,000 chips for another hand. So I folded, and big blind fought for a while and then folded as well. Next hand I folded 10-3, and the next hand was kind of a similar spot to the 3s. I probably would have folded to an earlier position raise, especially one of the shorter stacks. But when it folded to this guy, who's got a bigger stack than me, then this guy, and this guy, so he's kind of the big stack in this situation from late position. He min raised. I thought it was a decent spot to shove. Even though we're really close to the money, I'm picking up a lot of chips, and it's going to work most of the time. And I feel even if he calls, we could be in decent shape against some of the hands that he calls with. So that was that hand, and then there was this tremendous hand where I went under the gun raise, a flat with ace-10 suited, a squeeze from the chip leader in the big blind, who made it just over 3x. Ace-10 suited decided to call, and then shoved on his c-bet with basically overcards, and managed to bank an ace on the river for a big pot. So we will make a note on that. And then just some hands that I folded. Alright, so now we're back live. Just over 20 big blinds still. The blinds are going up in less than a minute. And then we will be, I guess, just over 20 bigs. So that shove of ace-10 was a nice pot for us to pick up before the blinds went up. They will be going up next hand. So we might have an interesting spot here with ace-9. I'm definitely going to play it against this Belgium on the button with his bigger stack now. He's probably going to be opening up even lighter. I will make some further notes on him as we go. But we're 6 spots from the money. You can see some of the people are starting to stall a little bit, so it's always kind of nice to see who's stalling. I'm going to fold ace-9 at his raise. He's one of the guys that seemed to be taking his time, and he still decided to open, so I'm pretty sure he has a hand that he's probably going with. Okay, so 6 from the cash. Oh, he folded to that guy. Wow. Flatted UTG on the big blind open. 25 BBs and ace-10 suited. in the middle position, and take a break on the note for a sec because we have ace-10 as well. So same spot, 6 from the money. Wow, that same guy just raised again. It's pretty interesting because just the hand before he raised and folded to a just over 10 big blind shove. I just don't think he's going to be doing that 2 hands in a row. I could be wrong. We can't find him on any tables. He has his thing blocked. So, you know, I'm just gonna fold. We have over 20 bigs. We still have time. I definitely would have been shoving on Funk if he had opened, but we'll give that guy credit for having something the second hand. It doesn't seem like he's going to open and fold twice in a row, but you never know. Alright, so finish making this note. So he flatted an under the gun 20 big blind open with 25 bigs and ace-10 suited from middle position. Flatted 3x, squeeze from big blind, chip leader. Jammed with no fold equity on 8-7-3, whatever. Doesn't really matter what the exact cards were. Basically, obviously, just complete bricked. But yeah, 8-7-3, rainbow, flop. All right. We're now 5 spots from the money. It's now definitely at the time where everyone knows that they're on the bubble. So the shorter stacks are probably going to be playing pretty tight, and some of them will time bank and stall a little bit, and the bigger stacks are most likely going to be trying to raise more often and steal some pots on the bubble. So I'm still going to look for a decent spot to maybe shove on the one bigger stack here, Funk. And if this guy Kitty Cat continues to open on the bubble, then I may choose to try and to shove on him as well. Here, it's close. I'm going to fold it. There's one big stack behind me, and there's still a few shove stacks that might shove on me. And I'd rather save my chips to shove on someone else than to open and get 3 better or get shoved on with ace-6. There's always extra value in it, I feel, when it's suited, because someone could call with, the big blind could defend with, lower diamonds. But in this spot, he shoved on this guy, so he might have shoved on me, but blind on blind, it's a bit different than if I raised from early position. So we don't really know what he would have done if I would have raised. But from our small bit of information, Hurus seems to be pretty aggressive. He raised those 2 times in a row, right on the bubble, folded one of them to a 10 big blind shove, and then just shoved on this guy. So he may be a guy that we can shove on if he continues to play aggressively. And now we have this new chip leader on our table who just 4x'd, which is definitely notable. 3 from the money. I'll have a little look here. He is only playing this tournament. It's pretty nice when the chip leader on the table might be a bit of a donkey or inexperienced. So 22, 3 from the cash, table chip lead, 4x'd, 4x opened. I just like to make that note right away because it's something that stands out to me, some of that 4x's, and I want to see if he changes it for other hands, and especially if he shows down a hand, I want to see if it's like a 3x or a 4x or a min raise, as we might be able to get a bit of a read on what type of hands he has by his raise amount. And of course also just the fact that he's obviously, well, not obviously, but very, very unlikely to be a reg or a pro when he opens 4x, because most online rigs or pros are opening close to a min raise. And then again, the fact that he's only playing 1 table right now is another sign that he's probably an amateur or a bit inexperienced. it's possible that he might have just been, 4xing because it's the bubble, and he figures that no one's going to call a big raise on the bubble. But I think it's more likely that he's just inexperienced and was protecting a big hand, or didn't want to get flatted, or might have had a small pair and didn't want to see a flop, or a lot of different things. But most of them include him being probably inexperienced. So here we have a big blind call and then a check raise on the flop. It's a pretty coordinated flop, 9-8-6, 2 hearts, straight draws, flush draws, 2 pairs, a lot of different hands that the big blind could have or could be bluffing a scary looking flop. Hura shoved on him, and we will now get to see if Funk Gel was just making a move on the flop. It's not a bad spot to make a move. It's a good flop to check raise, with a big stack on the bubble, but it did not work in that spot. Alright, so now we have ace-9 suited in the big blind. Definitely would have shoved on Funk Gel or Hurus if they had raised from late position, but when this guy opens under the gun with only 11 bigs behind, it seems like he has a monster 2 spots from the money, and I am just going to fold ace-9. And then we will continue on here. So I'd fold ace-9 suited the hand before, but if it folded to me, I would raise 9-4, just because it's blind on blind, it's on the bubble, and I expect him to fold most hands. And Bermuda just 4x'd again under the gun, so that seems to be his raise amount. 2 for 2 anyway, so I'm going to make another note again. 2 from the cash. 4x to UTG. Just like to make the second note because it just reinforces the first one, just so I know that it's definitely a pattern. I'll just keep an eye on the lobby just so I know where we're at. Let's keep it down there in the corner so we can see. It says 38 players remaining. 2 from the money. And again, just kind of want to know what everyone else is looking at. And the blinds will be going up in 1 minute to 501,000. And we'll be down to about 15 big blinds. So we've ended up getting quite short here, which obviously isn't ideal. We lost the kings to the ace-queen, and then we lost the kings to the ace-3. Everyone's kind of hurt, obviously. And now we picked up an ace-jack, which is a very nice hand. So I'm going to min-raise and induce one of these bigger stacks to maybe make a move on me on the bubble. And I will not be folding unless it went like re-raise and then a 4-bet behind. I'll be playing for my stack against one of the bigger stacks and most likely call the shorter stack shove. I'd be happier to call a big stack shove than I would the short stack shove, because the short stack's probably going to be tighter on the bubble, whereas one of these guys might try to make a move on me. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully we have the best hand. We do, and hopefully we hold. And that's a good turn. And that's a nice double. So that's the reason why I min-raised instead of just shoving there. A lot of people would say that they'd rather shove with 20 big blinds. But if he has ace-deuce through ace-10, he might fold if I shove. Or if I min-raise, he's definitely going to shove it on me. If he's going to shove king-7 on me, he's definitely going to shove ace-rag on me, so I don't want to fold out those hands. So that's why I definitely prefer the min-raise here to the open shove with 20 big blinds, even though it's on the bubble. So I'm going to make a note on this guy. $20, 2 from the money. Jammed king-7 off on my 20 big blind cutoff min-raise with, I guess he had 30 BBs. And from the big blind. Also with no one else behind him. He's not risking his stack against this guy or anything, or someone else with more chips behind him. So he's much more liable to make that play from the big blind where he's heads up. So that was a nice double up. We're up to 40 big blinds now, and we are now hand for hand. So there's no reason for this guy to be time banking because it's hand for hand, but some people don't notice that or don't know what it means. If you don't, hand for hand means they wait for the hands to be completed on every table before they play the next hand. So it's to keep people from stalling, but sometimes it doesn't work. But he's only got a few seconds left anyway. Alright, well, we definitely have a bit more mobility now. We can do a few more things. Gives us a chance to 3-bet, gives us a chance to open a little bit more. Gives us a chance to maybe play post flop versus this guy with a lot of chips who's a bit inexperienced. So this guy shoved ace king during hand for hand, and Funky just snap called him off with the queen jack, which I'm going to have to look at the odds, but seems like a very bad call. So MikeLeah wasn't afraid to bubble during hand for hand with ace king, and Funkgel tried to bubble him with queen jack. Trying to think here. I clicked fold, but this might be a decent spot for me to open. Actually, I got two bigger stacks behind me. I'll fold. Alright. So he had to call almost 10,000. He had to call 9,500 into 15,000. He's nowhere close getting the correct odds to make a call with queen jack, especially given the dynamics of during hand for hand. MikeLeah should have a hand that has him dead. He was quite lucky to have two live cards. Could have ace queen, ace jack, jacks, queens, kings, aces. I guess could have like pocket tens or pocket nines or something too, but probably would have taken a little bit more time during hand for hand before he shoved those hands. So I would not have called with queen jack, but I would not do a lot of things that we've already seen Funkgel do. So might as well make one more note. Hearing hand, forehand, and snap called shove with queen jack, getting about 1.5 to 1. So again, all these notes are just kind of giving me more and more information on this player, and just reinforcing that he's not very good. Has made a lot of bad decisions. Shoving 19 bigs from the button with ace 3. Again, a lot of people would say that's the correct play because it's unexploitable. But then the play that he made with ace 10 and the play he just made with queen jack are quite bad. So we picked up ace king here under the gun with 30 bigs, and a person with 9 big blinds decided to flat, and Funkgel, no surprise, decided to call as well. I'm not going to give them any free cards on a draw heavy board like this, but I'll make a very small bet to give them some room to do something with. They decide to maybe jam over the top with middle pair or something. I don't expect them to ever fold a pair or a draw anyway, but they folded on the ace-high board, which we'll take. Picked up 2,000 chips from each of them. It's actually a pretty big pot at this stage of the tournament, especially with the blinds going up. So we're now up to 36, 37 big blinds. I didn't even notice that. Didn't even notice we're still on the bubble. I would have thought it would have passed by now, but it's actually still hand for hand. Last couple hands went very quick, so I didn't notice that it was still hand for hand. Which might explain why this person decided to just call my raise with 9 big blinds instead of shoving, because it was still the bubble. So he probably had some sort of pair and wanted to see a clean flop, and the ace scared him away. Alright, so still on the bubble. We're going to raise here, make it 2.5. discourage him from flatting and just steal the blinds. I just don't think he's going to give very much resistance very often on the exact bubble. Especially when he has 25 big blinds now, he's not as desperate anymore. And, with me having a lot more chips, he doesn't want to bust right on the bubble. So we're still hand for hand, and nice little couple pots for me, and basically tied for the chip lead with Bermuda, who seems to be inexperienced, and Hurus, who seems to be on the aggressive side. We have a little bit more information on Bermuda than we do on Hurus, though. So I'm definitely going to open every single hand that folds to me for the next couple, because it seems like I have weak players or short stacks behind me, unless the bubble bursts, and that'll change things a little bit. Just looking back over the last couple of hands, just wanted to make sure I didn't miss any spots opening on the bubble, but I folded Jack Deuce off in the big blind to his under the gun raise, and previous hand was Ace King, and the previous hand I didn't have as many chips and folded a couple bad hands with a couple bigger stacks behind me. So here we have Ace 7 suited, which will be a little bit awkward if one of these two guys shoves, because it's especially this guy who's been stalling on the bubble. I don't know if I call him or not. I'm probably going to call Funk just because he is who he is. I'm obviously definitely going to raise. And it's kind of one of these spots where this hand's basically a bluff, because if they give me resistance on the bubble, they probably have a pretty big hand. But actually, exactly what I wanted to happen happened. I wanted this guy to defend from the big blind, and hopefully I can win a few bets from him. I'm going to pot control, just in case he somehow has two pair or something like that. And maybe I can get him to bluff with middle pair, or might get some value. So I'm going to bet here. I have top pair and a gutter. Get some value from a lot of his pairs. Hopefully he does not have a flush draw. But I expect him still here to have just one pair. And I'm just going to make another little small bet. And try and get him to call with a 10 or something like that. Now again, it's a very educated player. That bet might get me check raised a lot, because it looks like I'm just going for very, very light value. It never looks like I have a big hand. But I've already established that I think this player is very unexperienced and a bit of an amateur, so I expected him to call me with just a pair, which he did. He had King 8, so he called me with third pair. So another nice pot, and we're up to 48,000. And not only did we gain the chips that we did on that hand, but we also took them away from him, which separates us from him that much more. And that would be the end of the bubble. So I don't mind him winning that hand, because I like him having the chips, but the table just broke, and we got a new table draw, and it's not a very nice table draw that we wanted to see, as we are 6 out of 36, and it looks like we have the chip leader, and a 2-1 chip lead on the field directly on our left. So it's not a very good situation. It's going to keep us from doing what we want to do in terms of controlling the table. It just means that I'll probably tighten up my opening range a little bit, and we'll maybe wait for him to make a mistake trying to bully us. But it's getting a bit more shallow now. The average stack, so you can see, is 28,000, which is just 28 big blinds. So there's going to be a lot of pre-flop play from here on in. People just open shoving or 3-bet shoving. And so it's basically just having the right, knowing the right call range and trying to play as perfectly as possible. So Matthias, that was the guy that we started the tournament against. He won that first hand against us, that first orbit where he made a flush with ace-queen against our ace-jack when we made a straight. He took half our stack the very first orbit. And here we are about 3.5 hours later. So the blinds just went up, so that makes everyone even more shallow. We're at 40 big blinds, and it puts the average stack 28,000 at It's just over 20 bigs. 24,000 would be 20 bigs, so like 23 bigs. So it just makes it even shorter, more shallower, and makes for even more pre-flop shoves. So it's even more reasons for me right now to tighten up my opening range a little bit. I've got a big stack to my left, and then I have a couple shove stacks, I guess 3 shove stacks, and then these guys are at 40 and 30 big blinds. So I'm pretty sure this guy was on my table before. I recognize the name. Don't have any notes. He's playing a couple other $11 tournaments. Seems like a semi-grinder, but with this one being kind of deep in the money and with the chip lead, he's probably going to just be focusing on this one. That's a really big shove by that guy. Guy with 30 big blinds opened on the button, and he just shoved, well, he shoved 40 bigs, but he shoved 30 bigs effective from the small blind. Alright, so we picked up ace-king suited. Definitely would be fine with this guy shoving, or this guy shoving, or this guy shoving, or this guy shoving, or this guy 3-betting. It's kind of a nice, it's kind of time of the tournament where you want action with ace-king suited because everyone's getting shallow and looking to shove hands like ace-queen and ace-jack. I will not open the second one in a row. Again, a few shove stacks and a big stack behind me. I'm going to probably tighten up my opening range here for a bit. Obviously, I probably would have opened ace-8 the first hand and then ace-king the second hand, but I didn't want to open ace-king and then ace-8. Alright, so we got Roden who's playing a few tournaments. This guy, Jigs, is riding quite a few. He's got 10 tables going. Heuris we know from the last table, and our kind of incomplete read is that he seems to be on the aggressive side. So Jigs, who's playing 10 tables, just shoved his 15 bigs versus the big stack open, who decided to call with king-9 of diamonds and big the king, and that will do it for that guy. So, it's not a big shock that the chip leader is opening king-9 suited under the gun. He should be opening a pretty wide range at this point. So the guy made a good shove with ace-queen. This guy who has a lot of chips is only playing this one tournament, and he just opened 4x, and he was the guy that just shoved 30 big blinds effective on an open, so seems to be kind of overplaying a little bit or scared a little bit. So $22 ITM is in the money, and 30 BBs effective versus button raise. Opened 4x from EP, and I didn't get to see what he did on the flop there, so I'll replay that. I know we bet the flop, I just didn't see the bet sizing. So he 4x'd, chip leader called from the big blind, probably just trying to stack him, trying to flop a monster. 11-8, and he bet double pot. And while that was happening, the chip leader just doubled up somebody, so we'll have a look at that in a sec. But first I want to finish off the note on this guy. C bet 2 times pot, which was like 40% of his stack. Definitely seems to be playing scared. And we'll have a look at that other hand here in a sec. I'm going to open ace-3, and basically just hoping to get by the chip leader, who's probably a bit tilted right now. May not be the best open I ever made, but it got by him. And this guy's disconnected. He's back. So I'm going to have a look and see. I saw it was aces and 5s. Alright, so this guy who's playing a bit scared called. Seems to be like a decent flop for me to bet. The short stack in the big blind, never mind, he just opens up for over double pot. So definitely seems to be the guy that we're going to be looking to trap and try and stack. We'll let him have this one. Okay, so pocket aces 3x'd with 20 bigs, and the chip leader put him in with pocket 5s, which seems a bit on the skewy side for sure. We'll finish that note in a sec. We got ace queen here to play. And min raise, Heuris just flatted with like 30,000. Wow, that guy squeezed. It's a 4x squeeze, which is pretty big. We have just under 40 bigs. He's the type of player that might fold if we shove, but I just feel that he's more likely to have a really big hand right now. He seems to be playing his hands face up. So I'm just going to get out of the way and hope to trap him with a bigger hand later because he's overbetting so much. So I'm going to fold ace queen and hopefully find a better spot. So $22 in the money, 3x'd ace ace with 20 Bs. She wouldn't just shoved, but I didn't see. No, I actually just 3-bet called off. It's basically the same thing, but this guy had 25 bigs. I'm kind of surprised he didn't just shove it. Maybe he was trying to make it look stronger. Want to see what happened here. Oh wow, Heuris put it in, and I actually had the best hand with ace queen. But if I had shoved, he would have just folded. But obviously, we would have picked up a lot of chips. So Heuris decided to shove pocket threes over the squeeze, and I folded the ace queen. Interesting. I would have hit a queen on the flop, which would have been nice. It's an interesting hand to see the hands that they both had. All right, so we have ace-8 off. Well, this would have been fine with Matthias shoving. Would have been happy to call his 12 big blind shove with ace-8 blind on blind. But we got a walk, which is fine too. We'll take 3 chips, no problem. Okay, so I guess basically my note with this guy just seems to be overplaying everything. 4x squeezed with ace-10 suited. Defended small blind and donk led 2 times pot on jack 5-5. So I'm fine with him chipping up. I anticipate that we should find a nice spot to double up through him just because he's overbetting so much. And we just got to basically hit a flop or have something pre-flop, and he should give us our stack, it seems like. A bit of an awkward spot here with ace-6. Well, matters more because that guy shoved. Like it's a hand that I'm always going to open from the cutoff, but with the chip leader on the button, basically, if I open it, I'm planning on him probably 3-betting and then probably shoving on him. So it's kind of awkward in that it might have had to play for my stack with ace-3 if I decided to open that hand. And this one kind of might be similar. Again, I expect him to 3-bet at this point. We have 45,000. There's 11,000 in the middle. We're picking up like almost 30% of our stack. So I'm going to go ahead and shove this in. The other thing I could do is just do a minish 4-bet and then induce him to shove a weaker hand, which is the play that I often make and probably prefer in that spot. Because if he does have a hand like ace-3 and I 4-bet small, then he may still shove with ace-3 just because I gave him the room to shove. So I usually prefer that to just shoving back over the top. But as I said, we were picking up about 30% of our stack, so it was a nice spot for us. And I pretty much expected him to be shoving, or to be 3-betting very light there almost every time. It's an interesting hand. 8-6 limped in and then decided to call the shove. I believe the big blind had about 10 bigs. Basically with the big blind he had 10 bigs. So he limp called with 8-6 suited instead of shoving on him. If he shoved 8-6, the guy with 10-8 would have folded, but because he limped in, he shoved 10-8, and then he decided to call off with 8-6 anyway. And very next hand, and he got it in again, ace-8 against ace-jack, and he doubled them up again. And all of a sudden our spewy guy that we were hoping to double up from is now even with us. And let's have a look and see what happened that hand. So the ace-jack is 20 bigs. Let's see how big he opened. Yeah, he 4x'd again, then called off. And are they getting it in again? Wow. 3 hands in a row, he got in 3s against jacks that time. And he went from 13,000 to 123,000 in 3 hands. Yeah. So this time he 4x'd again. That guy just shoved jacks. Wow. And he decided to call off with pocket 3s with 57,000. 57,000 is 40 bigs. So he just called a 40 big shove with 3s, and the other guy shoved 40 big blinds with jacks. So we will expand our note-taking. So limp called, then big blind, shove, BVB with 8-6 suited, 4x, called 20 big blind jam with ace-8. And let's have a look here at this hand because we have queen jack on the button. We're going to go ahead and open. Chip leader on our left is probably going to be a little bit less reluctant to 3-bet us now that we shoved on him the hand before. I'm going to go ahead and c-bet this one just because their hand really doesn't have that much value. Hope to take it down, and hope it doesn't make a move, or hope to either improve or get a card like that we can now bluff. He's leading into us. Probably just going to get out of the way now. And he saved us because I was probably going to double barrel about 9,000 on that turn. And we'll let him have that punt. Ace-8, and then 4x called 40 big blind jam with 3-3. And I think like some of that was because it was all the same guy. It was different guys. He might not have played it the same, but he was obviously, taking it personal and trying to bust that guy after doubling him up 2 hands in a row prior. And then this guy, $22 ITM, 3-bet jammed, 40. I'm going to tighten up a little bit here. I'm back under 30 big blinds. 3-bet jammed, 40 BBs.